Jason never thought his hunger for success would lead him into darkness. He grew up in Surrey, in a small two-room apartment where the walls cracked when it rained. His father sold spare parts, and his mother managed a small kiosk. They worked hard, but life never gave them much. Jason always told himself he'd change that story, he'd be the one to make his family proud. After university, he got a job at a financial firm in Victoria Island. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. He wore the same black suit every Monday and took long buses to work. Still, he carried hope like a torch. Everything changed the day Mr. Douglas walked into the firm. Douglas was the kind of man people noticed instantly. He was in his early 50s, tall, clean-shaven, always surrounded by quiet men in dark suits. His perfume lingered long after he left a room. Everyone at the office spoke his name with respect and a hint of fear. That morning, Jason was chosen to present a financial report. He stayed up all night preparing, rehearsing in front of his mirror. When he finally stood before Mr. Douglas and the board, his voice shook at first, but he found his rhythm. Numbers flowed, charts made sense, and for the first time, he felt seen. When he finished, Douglas looked at him and said only 2 words, "Well done." Those words stuck. They were the beginning of everything. 2 weeks later, Jason got a call from Douglas's assistant, inviting him to a private meeting. He thought it was a mistake. But it wasn't. Douglas wanted him to manage a confidential project, something off the company books. The pay was 3 times his salary. Jason didn't think twice. He said yes. Within months, his life transformed. He moved from a shared apartment to a furnished flat in Lekki. He bought his first car, a clean Honda Accord, and started dressing like the men he once admired. His colleagues envied him. His parents bragged about him. His girlfriend, Tonia, couldn't stop smiling. But Jason noticed things. Douglas's meetings were never public. His offices had no signs. And everyone around him carried a quiet tension, like people guarding secrets too heavy to drop. Still, Jason ignored it. Money has a way of silencing doubts. One Friday night, Douglas invited him to a dinner party. The mansion stood like a fortress in Banana Island, white walls, palm trees, and guards who didn't smile. Inside, the air smelled of money, imported wine, old leather, polished marble. 10 men sat around a long table. They all wore the same ring, gold, with a symbol engraved on it, a circle divided by 3 lines. Jason thought it was coincidence until Douglas placed one in front of him. "Welcome to the circle," Douglas said. Jason laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Douglas smiled and said, "You've done well. You've earned a place among men who matter." He didn't understand what it meant, but he took the ring. That night, when he got home, he placed it in a drawer and forgot about it. Or tried to. The following months felt strange. He started getting new assignments, no paperwork, no email trails. He would receive sealed envelopes and clear instructions: deliver this, collect that, don't ask questions. Once, he dropped off an envelope at a private airstrip and saw 2 men arguing near a jet. One of them, a politician he'd seen on TV, looked terrified. The other man was one of Douglas's aides. When the aide spotted Jason, he nodded once. The politician stopped talking. Jason drove away with a chill in his chest. Tonia noticed he was changing. "You don't laugh anymore," she told him one night. He forced a smile and said, "I'm just tired." But she was right. The light in his eyes was fading. Still, the rewards kept coming. Douglas gave him a car upgrade, a new position, a bigger house. He met senators, oil tycoons, even foreign investors. He was living the dream, but he no longer felt awake. Then came the night that broke everything. Douglas called him to the mansion again. When Jason arrived, the same 10 men were there, dressed in black. The table was gone. The room was empty except for a single chair in the center. "Sit," Douglas said. Jason obeyed. Douglas spoke calmly. "Jason, you've benefited from this circle. You've been trusted with more than most. Now it's time to prove your loyalty." He snapped his fingers, and a man brought in a small metal box. Inside was another envelope. Douglas said, "Deliver this tonight." No questions. When you return, you'll be one of us fully. Jason nodded, though his heart pounded. He drove through the night until he reached the address, a quiet house in Acadia. He knocked. A woman opened the door. She looked confused, holding a baby in her arms. "This must be a mistake," Jason said, but before he could finish, a van pulled up behind him. Two men in suits stepped out, took the envelope from his hand, and walked past him into the house. He heard the woman scream. He drove away shaking, unable to breathe. The next morning, Douglas called. "Good work," he said. "From now on, your life will never be the same." Jason hung up and vomited. He couldn't tell Tonya. He couldn't tell anyone. He went to work every day, smiled when needed, and pretended his soul wasn't cracking. Weeks later, he noticed something strange. Whenever he removed the ring, his phone stopped ringing. Deals fell through. Clients withdrew. But when he wore it again, everything worked perfectly. It scared him. One night, he decided to confront Douglas. He drove to the mansion unannounced. The guards looked uneasy but let him in. He found Douglas alone in his study, reading a newspaper. "I can't do this anymore," Jason said. "Whatever this is, I'm done." Douglas didn't look up. He simply said, "There's no exit, Jason. You should have thought of that before you accepted the ring." Jason clenched his fists. "Then take it back." Douglas smiled faintly. "That ring doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the circle. You don't resign from it, you serve it." Jason stood there, shaking. Douglas continued, "You wanted to be powerful. Now you are. You just don't like the cost." Jason walked out, knowing he was trapped. From that night, he became paranoid. He felt watched everywhere he went. Cars followed him home. Unknown numbers called and hung up. Then one morning, he woke up to a photo message, "Tonya," tied to a chair. His hands went cold. Before he could call anyone, his phone rang. Douglas's voice came through. "You shouldn't have tried to walk away. You'll get her back when we're sure you understand loyalty." Jason screamed into the phone, but Douglas had already ended the call. He drove for hours, searching, calling, begging. No one knew where she was. Days turned to weeks. Then one night, he received a text with a single location pin, an abandoned warehouse near the port. He went alone. Inside, he found Tonya sitting on the floor, eyes closed, barely breathing. She was alive, but something in her eyes was gone. She didn't speak. She just looked at him as if she no longer knew who he was. He carried her out, crying. But before he reached his car, a black SUV pulled up. Douglas stepped out, calm as always. "This was your warning," he said. "Next time, you won't get a second chance." Then he left. Jason and Tonya moved to another city. He quit his job and tried to live quietly, but trouble found him again. Letters with no names arrived at his doorstep. Envelopes filled with cash, marked, "Your share." He tried to refuse, but the money kept coming. And so did the threats. Everywhere he went, he saw men wearing that same gold ring. In banks. In government buildings. Even in churches. He realized the cult wasn't a small group, it was a network running through every layer of power. He couldn't escape. Months later, he went to a pastor in Yaba. He confessed everything, every job, every meeting, every lie. The pastor listened quietly, then said, "Son, what you've joined is built by men, not spirits. But men can be more dangerous than demons." He prayed for Jason, then told him to gather evidence. "Expose them. That's the only way to break their hold." Jason hesitated. "If I do, they'll kill me." The pastor replied, "If you don't, you'll die slowly anyway." Jason left with tears in his eyes. He began collecting documents, financial records, secret transactions, offshore accounts. He stored them on a flash drive and kept it hidden under the floorboard of his apartment. Then he contacted a journalist named Michael, the same journalist he was once ordered to silence. They met in a small cafe in Acadia. Jason handed him the flash drive and said, "If I disappear, release it." Michael asked why he was risking his life. Jason said quietly, because some money is too expensive to keep. A week later, the story broke. Headlines everywhere: the secret society of billionaires, power, corruption, and blood. Douglas was arrested. Some of his men fled the country. Others vanished without trace. But Jason didn't celebrate. He knew it wasn't over. 3 days after the news went public, he received one final message: "You can run, but you'll never be free." That night, his neighbors heard a loud knock at his door. By morning, Jason was gone. No one knows what happened. Some say he escaped abroad. Others believe the circle found him. But one thing is certain: every few years, another young man rises suddenly, out of nowhere, rich beyond measure, confident, connected to everyone that matters. And on his finger glows a gold ring, a circle divided by 3 lines. They call it the mark of power. But those who wear it know what it truly means: the mark of ownership. Because in the world Jason entered, money was never the goal. It was the chain.